Did you know that there are numerous facts about Jesus that often remain overshadowed by the more well-known stories? In today's video, we will explore surprising and little-known information about one of the most emblematic figures in history. This content goes beyond merely repeating what many already know. Instead, it expands understanding of Jesus, offering new angles and perspectives that are rarely discussed. Each fact presented here can transform your understanding of one of history's most iconic figures. By knowing these details, you can have richer conversations, better understand cultural references, and perhaps see your life from a new perspective. It's information that adds value, knowledge that enriches. Now, imagine discovering something completely new about such a familiar figure. Are you curious to know which of these facts you already knew and which will be completely new to you? Then, stay with us, because this video promises to change the way you see the story of Jesus. Did you know that, although Jesus is widely recognized as a figure of compassion and wisdom, he was also known for his sense of humor? Historians and Bible scholars point out that some of Jesus' parables and teachings, when understood in the cultural context of the time, reveal a side of Jesus who knew how to use irony and sarcasm to convey his messages. This lesser-known aspect shows us a more relatable and human side, breaking the often idealized image that many have of him. Let's follow a chronological order of events, as this way, not only will you learn more about Jesus, but you'll also gain a deeper understanding of his journey. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content about the Bible. Fact 1. The reign of Herod the Great. Herod the Great ruled over Judea with a mix of political cunning, cruelty, and grandiosity. His ability to maintain the favor of Rome while suppressing any form of internal dissent is evident in his policies and construction projects. He was named King of the Jews by the Romans and used this authority to transform the infrastructure of his region through major projects, such as the expansion of the Temple of Jerusalem, which aimed to both appease the local population and display the power and wealth of his reign. However, his legacy is also marked by the fear he instilled in the people, using spies and maintaining a personal guard composed of foreign mercenaries to keep strict control. Herod's personality was complex and contradictory. He was known for his quick mood swings and constant suspicion, leading him to commit acts of extreme violence, including the murder of his wife and 2 of his sons, accused of treason. These acts of brutality contributed to an atmosphere of instability and fear, which permeated the society of the time. In such a volatile environment, Jesus' message of forgiveness and spiritual peace appeared as a radical counterpoint to the oppression and terror established by Herod, offering new hope to the oppressed and disadvantaged. Fact 2. The influence of Roman occupation. The Roman occupation of Judea was not only a force of political domination but also an imposition of foreign values and culture that often clashed with local traditions. The Romans introduced taxation systems that benefited the Roman elite and their local collaborators, while the majority of the population faced poverty and exploitation. This economic dynamic intensified social tensions and fostered resentment against the occupiers and their sympathizers. By positioning himself against this power structure, Jesus not only challenged the established order, but also articulated a vision of justice and equity, principles that directly contradicted Roman oppression and exploitation. Furthermore, the Roman presence directly influenced the administration of the legal system and the maintenance of public order, with the introduction of laws aimed at controlling and often suppressing the practice of the Jewish religion. The Romans used military force to contain revolts and ensure that decisions made in Rome were executed locally. In contrast, Jesus proposed a kingdom based on moral and spiritual principles, challenging the imperial logic of power and domination. His teachings promoted a kingdom not of this world, attracting those who saw in the Roman Empire not an order to be celebrated, but a system to be overcome. Fact 3. Jesus and Aramaic. Did you know that Jesus spoke Aramaic? This was the most common language among the people in his region at that time. Aramaic was spoken in everyday life, on the streets, and in the markets, and Jesus used this language to teach his ideas and communicate with people around him. Although he also used some Hebrew expressions, especially when reading the scriptures in synagogues, Aramaic was the language he chose to directly connect with the majority of the people. This shows how he wanted his messages to be clear and understood by all, not just by scholars or religious leaders. Fact 4. Nazareth, the town of Jesus. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, a small town that many people barely noticed on the map. Nazareth was not an important place politically or economically. It was more one of those small places where everyone knows each other. Growing up in such a place might have helped Jesus maintain a strong connection with ordinary people, those who did not live in major centers. This humble origin of Jesus, far from the major centers of power, also made him more accessible in the eyes of the people. He did not come from a wealthy or powerful family, but from a simple place, full of workers and families struggling to survive day after day. This made his words resonate even more with those who felt forgotten or marginalized by society at the time. These two facts, the language Jesus chose to communicate his messages and his place of origin, help us better understand how he was able to connect so deeply with people. He spoke their language and shared many of the life experiences they faced. This common understanding created a strong bond, making Jesus' lessons not just more relevant, but also more direct and personal. Understanding these aspects of his life, we realize that Jesus was not a distant and inaccessible figure. He was deeply rooted in the reality of ordinary people, speaking in a way they could understand and using examples that made sense in their everyday lives. This was one of the secrets to the great impact he had and continues to have on the lives of many people around the world. Fact 5. Notable contemporaries of Jesus. Jesus lived at a time when other figures also made history, such as John the Baptist and Pontius Pilate. John the Baptist was known for baptizing people in the Jordan River and preached about the coming of the Messiah, whom he believed to be Jesus. The relationship between Jesus and John highlights the interconnection of their missions and the profound impact of their teachings at the time. On the other hand, Pontius Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea, a key figure in the events that led to the crucifixion of Jesus. The presence of these figures during the life of Jesus not only contextualizes his story within a larger political and social framework, but also highlights the complexity of the forces at play during his ministry. Fact 6. The humble origins of Jesus' family. Jesus came from a working-class family. His father, Joseph, was a carpenter, a respected profession, but one that did not bring wealth or power. The carpenter's trade required skill and physical effort, characteristics that likely influenced Jesus' life, teaching him the value of hard work and simplicity. Fact 7. The baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. One of the most emblematic moments in Jesus' life was his baptism in the Jordan River. This event was conducted by John the Baptist, who recognized Jesus as the awaited Messiah. The baptism in the Jordan is significant not only as a rite of initiation into his public ministry but also as an act of humility and renewal. The choice to be baptized in open waters, accessible to all, symbolizes the openness and availability of his message to all people, regardless of their origin or status. Fact 8. The duration of Jesus' ministry. Jesus' ministry, though brief, was profoundly impactful. Lasting approximately 3 years, this period was marked by deep teachings, miracles, and the formation of a community of followers who would continue to spread his words long beyond his earthly life. In such a short time, Jesus managed to establish the foundations of a message that would challenge the social and religious norms of the time, promoting ideals of compassion, love for one another, and social justice that resonate to this day. Fact 9. Jesus travels through Galilee. Jesus spent a significant portion of his ministry traveling through Galilee. This region, with its numerous villages and towns, served as the main stage for the dissemination of his messages. By moving from place to place, Jesus not only reached a greater number of people but also demonstrated one of his central teachings in practice: the importance of reaching out to those in need. His itinerary included locations like Capernaum, Bethsaida, and various other locales where he spoke to crowds and performed healings, showing an active commitment to the well-being and spirituality of ordinary people. Fact 10. Jesus as a teacher in the synagogues. In addition to traveling, Jesus often taught in synagogues. Synagogues were the community centers for learning and prayer in each Jewish town and served as meeting points for the community to gather and discuss the Mosaic Law. By teaching in these spaces, Jesus not only positioned himself within the Jewish tradition, but also used the opportunity to reinterpret old teachings and propose new ways of understanding faith and ethics. His preachings in the synagogues often sparked intense debates, as he challenged traditional interpretations and encouraged the audience to think critically about moral and spiritual principles. Fact 11. Jesus' use of parables. Jesus often used parables to convey his deepest messages in a simple and direct manner. These symbolic stories enabled people of all educational and social levels to understand complex concepts about morality, the kingdom of God, and human behavior. By employing everyday situations familiar to his listeners, such as agriculture, fishing, or family relations, Jesus could effectively engage his audience, prompting them to reflect on the moral lessons of his stories in a personal and practical context. Fact 12. The parable of the prodigal son and forgiveness. One of the most impactful parables of Jesus is that of the prodigal son, which tells the story of a young man who leaves his father's house to live irresponsibly and licentiously, only to return repentant after squandering his entire inheritance. The father's response, welcoming his son back with open arms and a celebration, not only surprises but also serves as a powerful representation of forgiveness and unconditional love. This teaching highlights the importance of forgiving unconditionally, suggesting that true love should overcome all mistakes and flaws. These narratives not only capture the essence of Jesus' teachings, but also offer relevant points of reflection for current issues. The capacity to forgive, as seen in the parable of the prodigal son, resonates in a world where grudge and vengeance are common, encouraging a reconsideration of how we deal with others' faults and our own. By connecting these stories with contemporary dilemmas, we can explore how Jesus' teachings apply to our daily lives, promoting a deeper understanding and a more compassionate practice of human relations. Fact 13. The Parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan is one of the most emblematic stories used by Jesus to illustrate the principle of compassion and universal kindness. In this parable, a man is left wounded by the side of a road after being robbed. Several people, including a priest and a Levite, pass by the injured man without offering help. However, a Samaritan, belonging to an ethnically and religiously distinct group often discriminated against by the Jews, stops and offers aid, tending to his wounds and arranging for his recovery. This story challenges prejudices and emphasizes the importance of helping others, regardless of their origins or beliefs. It calls for action to see beyond social divisions and respond with empathy and direct action to human needs. Fact 14. The Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. The Sermon on the Mount is considered one of the most fundamental discourses of Jesus, addressing attitudes and behaviors that are valued in the kingdom of heaven, as well as providing practical instructions on how to live a life aligned with divine teachings. The Beatitudes, part of this sermon, proclaim blessings on those who possess qualities such as humility, mercy, and purity of heart. This sermon not only provides a deep insight into Jesus' spiritual priorities, but also serves as a clear guideline for his followers on how to pursue justice and peace in their lives. The Beatitudes continue to be a source of inspiration and reflection on the meaning of true happiness and success in life, challenging the materialistic values often dominant in contemporary society. Fact 15. Challenging Jewish norms and laws. Jesus became known for questioning and even challenging the prevailing Jewish norms and laws of his time. He frequently entered into confrontations with the Pharisees and other religious leaders over strict interpretations of Mosaic laws, particularly those which, in his view, neglected the essence of compassion and justice. For instance, he healed people on the Sabbath, arguing that God's law should not prevent acts of kindness and mercy. This approach not only sparked intense debates but also attracted followers who felt alienated by the rigidity of the existing religious system. In doing so, Jesus not only reformed religious practices but also redirected the focus of the law towards human well-being and social inclusion. Fact 16. Promoting love for enemies. One of the most revolutionary doctrines of Jesus was the encouragement to love one's enemies, which was completely contrary to the vengeful and tribalist norms of the time. In a society that often resorted to retaliation as a form of justice, Jesus proposed a path of peace and reconciliation. He taught that loving those who harm us not only breaks the cycle of violence but also paves the way for personal and community transformation. This teaching, a fundamental part of the Sermon on the Mount, challenged his listeners to expand their notions of community and identity, including even those considered adversaries or enemies. Fact 17. Jesus' emphasis on humility and service to others. Jesus taught that true greatness comes from humility and serving others, not from seeking power or status. He often set himself as an example, helping those in need and instructing his followers to do the same. For Jesus, serving others was not just an act of kindness but an essential part of living a meaningful and good life. He emphasized that by helping others, especially the most vulnerable like the poor, sick, and excluded, we are showcasing the best of humanity and fulfilling a greater purpose. Fact 18. Jesus' critique of religious hypocrisy. Jesus was highly critical of hypocrisy, especially among the religious leaders of his time, whom he referred to as Pharisees. He criticized them for strictly adhering to external religious rules while neglecting the essence of compassion and justice that should motivate these rules. Jesus highlighted the importance of a faith that is reflected in sincere and just actions, not just in rituals or appearances. He challenged people to reflect on their own motivations and to cultivate a spiritual life that was genuine and centered on loving others, not on seeking approval or admiration from others. Fact 19. The emphasis on genuine faith. Jesus emphasized the importance of genuine faith, which goes beyond merely observing external rituals and religious practices. He taught that true faith is manifested in the heart and in the daily actions of people, not just in adhering to traditions or participating in ceremonies. For Jesus, it was crucial that faith was accompanied by a sincere commitment to the values of love, mercy, and compassion. He often challenged his followers to examine their internal motivations and to ensure that their beliefs aligned with their everyday practices, demonstrating that true faith influences how we treat others and how we live our lives. Fact 20. The promotion of social justice and care for the marginalized. One of the strongest aspects of Jesus' teachings was his insistence on the need for social justice and caring for the marginalized. He frequently spoke about the importance of helping the poor, the sick, orphans, and widows, highlighting these acts of care as central to religious life. Jesus not only preached about these issues but also lived according to them, often associating with people who were despised or excluded by society. He criticized power structures that perpetuated inequality and advocated for a society where justice and equity prevailed, showing that true religiosity is manifested in actively fighting against injustice and promoting the well-being of all, especially the most vulnerable. This transformative approach challenges everyone to reassess their own actions and how they contribute to society. Fact 21. The literary influence of Jesus. Although Jesus never wrote a book, he is one of the most quoted and referenced figures in world literature. His ability to communicate profound truths through parables and speeches led to his words being transcribed by his followers in the Gospels and then echoed in countless works over the centuries. Writers from various eras have used Jesus' teachings to explore themes of morality, justice, and the human condition, demonstrating the enduring impact of his messages that transcend the religious context and enter into cultural and philosophical realms. Fact 22. Jesus and artistic movements. Jesus' influence is not limited to literature. He has also inspired numerous artistic movements throughout the centuries. From Renaissance paintings depicting scenes from the life of Christ to modern dramas exploring his parables, the figure of Jesus has been a continuous source of inspiration for artists, seeking to express issues of faith, redemption, and human nature. These works often reflect the values and teachings of Jesus, using art as a means to convey his message of love and compassion to diverse audiences and across different times. Fact 23. The foundation of Western laws in the ethics of Jesus. The words of Jesus have formed a significant basis for many of the laws and ethical principles in the Western world. His teachings on justice, mercy, and equality permeate the foundations of legal systems and human rights philosophies that shape many modern societies. Principles such as the equal treatment of all before the law and the moral duty to assist the needy and protect the vulnerable are direct echoes of the values that Jesus promoted. These notions, rooted in Jesus' teachings, continue to influence contemporary debates on ethics and justice, reflecting his enduring relevance to legal and moral issues. Fact 24. Martin Luther King Jr. and inspiration from Jesus. Notable historical figures like Martin Luther King Jr. often cited Jesus as a source of inspiration in their struggles for social justice and civil rights. King, in particular, modeled many of his speeches and nonviolent strategies on the principles of love, forgiveness, and justice that Jesus preached. In his famous letters and speeches, King frequently invoked the authority of Jesus to strengthen the moral argument against segregation and oppression, demonstrating that the fight for equality was not only a political matter, but deeply rooted in spiritual and ethical values. This connection highlights how the teachings of Jesus continue to inspire movements for social change and promote a vision of community based on compassion and mutual respect. Fact 25. The crucifixion in Western art. The crucifixion of Jesus is one of the most depicted and symbolic events in Western art. This moment, captured in countless paintings, sculptures, and other art forms, serves not just as a representation of sacrifice and suffering, but also as a profound expression of redemption and love. Artists over the centuries have been drawn to this theme, exploring its various emotional and spiritual facets. These works help keep the narrative and impact of this event alive, allowing people from different times and cultures to connect with the story of Jesus in a personal and intimate way. Fact 26. Jesus in major celebrations. Jesus is the central figure in several major celebrations of the Christian calendar, such as Christmas and Easter. Christmas celebrates his birth, a time of great joy and hope, while Easter commemorates his resurrection, an event that reaffirms the promise of eternal life and redemption. These celebrations not only bring families and communities together in celebration and reflection, but also serve as moments to remember and reinforce Jesus' teachings on love, sacrifice, and the potential for spiritual and personal renewal. Fact 27. Diverse interpretations of Jesus' teachings. The words and teachings of Jesus are interpreted in various ways by different Christian denominations. While some churches emphasize salvation through faith alone, others highlight the importance of good works and community service as expressions of faith. This variety of interpretations demonstrates the richness and complexity of Christianity, reflecting how Jesus' teachings can be adapted to distinct cultural and historical contexts. The ability of his teachings to shape such a broad range of traditions and religious practices is a testament to their depth and universal relevance. Fact 28. The resurrection as the foundation of Christian faith. The resurrection of Jesus is seen as the cornerstone of Christian faith, symbolizing victory over death and the promise of eternal life for believers. This event not only reaffirms Jesus' divinity for Christians, but also strengthens the message of hope and renewal. The celebration of the resurrection, especially during Easter, is a central time for reflection on sacrifice and divine love, encouraging the faithful to live according to the principles of forgiveness and redemption that Jesus taught. Fact 29. Cultural representations of Jesus. Jesus has been a recurring theme in numerous films, books, and other forms of art throughout the centuries. Each artistic work offers a new interpretation or perspective on his life and message, from epic Hollywood films to Renaissance paintings and modern literary depictions. These artistic creations not only reflect the cultural views of their times but also contribute to the ongoing dialogue about the significance of his figure and teachings in contemporary life. Fact 30. The Gregorian calendar and the birth of Jesus. The Gregorian calendar, the most widely used time measurement system in the world today, is based on the birth of Jesus, marking the beginning of the Common Era. Although there are debates about the exact accuracy of the year of his birth, the choice to use his life as the starting point for the calendar illustrates the profound influence of Jesus on the organization of societies and the perception of historical time. This highlights how his life not only shaped religious and cultural aspects but also had a practical and lasting impact on everyday global aspects, such as how we measure time. Fact 31. Jesus as a prophet in various religions. Jesus is widely known as the central figure of Christianity, but what many may not know is that he is also recognized as an important prophet in several other religions, including Islam. In Islam, Jesus, known as Isa, is considered one of the greatest prophets, preceding Muhammad. His life and mission are respected, although the details and the interpretation of his divinity differ from Christian understandings. This view, shared by multiple religions, highlights the extent of Jesus' impact beyond cultural and religious boundaries, demonstrating his universal relevance. Fact 32. Absence of contemporary descriptions of his appearance. Interestingly, there are no contemporary descriptions of the physical appearance of Jesus in biblical texts or other documents from the time. This leaves his image largely open to interpretation, resulting in varied representations that often reflect more the cultural characteristics of the artists than historical reality. This lack of specific description has helped make the figure of Jesus accessible to different cultures around the world, who portray him in ways that resonate with their own communities. Fact 33. The belief in the non-physical existence of Jesus. A lesser-known facet of early Christianity is that some of the earliest Christian groups, such as the Docetists, believed that Jesus never existed as a physical human being but was merely a spirit or an apparition. These divergent interpretations about the nature of Jesus reflect the diversity of beliefs within the early Christian communities and highlight how concepts of divinity and humanity were intensely debated from the very beginning. Fact 34. The commonality of the name Jesus. The name Jesus, derived from the Hebrew Yeshua, was a common name in Judea during the time Jesus lived. This commonality of the name may have helped Jesus blend in with ordinary people, without initially standing out due to a unique title or name. The simplicity of his common name also symbolizes the message of humility and accessibility that he promoted through his teachings and interactions with people from all social classes. Fact 35. Jesus' outdoor teaching. Contrary to the popular belief that religious teachings at the time took place mainly in formal places of worship, Jesus often taught outdoors. He used mountains, fields, and lake shores as his teaching venues, making his messages accessible to anyone who wanted to listen. This preference for teaching in open spaces emphasizes his intention to reach as many people as possible, regardless of their social or religious standing. Fact 36. Equal treatment of women in Jesus' teachings. Jesus was notably progressive for his time in how he treated women, regarding them as equals to men in his teachings and ministry. He broke social and religious norms by openly conversing with women, including them among his closest followers, and highlighting them in his parables and lessons as examples of faith and morals. This revolutionary treatment provided a new status for women within their communities, encouraging a view of equality that was rare in the cultural and religious context of the time. Fact 37. Linguistic capability of Jesus. Historians suggest that Jesus could speak up to 4 languages: Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. This linguistic ability not only facilitated his communication across various regions of Judea, Galilee, and adjacent areas, but also allowed him to engage with a variety of people, including religious leaders, Roman administrators, and common groups from various ethnicities and backgrounds. This capacity reflects the universality of his ministry and his ability to effectively transmit his message to different audiences. Fact 38. Rapid trial and crucifixion. The trial and crucifixion of Jesus occurred over a surprisingly short period, less than 24 hours. From his arrest the previous night to his death on the cross the following day, the events leading up to his execution were marked by extraordinary speed, influenced by both political and religious pressures. This rapid unfolding of events underlines the tension and controversy that surrounded his figure and teachings, reflecting the profound impact he had on his contemporaries. Fact 39. Visit of the Magi. The visit of the Magi from the east to Jesus when he was still a child is often cited as an early recognition of his significance, not just within Judaism but also by prominent figures from other cultures. This event, celebrated in Christianity as the Epiphany, symbolizes the acceptance and recognition of Jesus' message and mission beyond Jewish borders, pointing to the universal impact he would come to have. Fact 40. The crown of thorns. The crown of thorns placed on Jesus' head during his crucifixion was a symbol of mockery of his claim to royalty, a humiliating act by the Roman soldiers who mocked his title of King of the Jews. This crown has become one of the most powerful symbols of Christianity, representing both the suffering of Jesus and his humble submission to divine plans, despite extreme pain and humiliation. Fact 41. Solitary prayer retreats. Jesus frequently retreated to solitary places to pray. These moments of solitude were essential for him, serving as an opportunity for reflection and direct communication with God. This practice not only shows the importance Jesus placed on personal spiritual life, but also serves as an example for his followers about the need to seek moments of introspection and spiritual connection, regardless of the demands of the external world. Fact 42. Healing of a leper. The healing of a leper by Jesus is one of the most significant acts that challenged the strict purity laws of the time. Lepers were considered unclean and were excluded from society. However, Jesus not only interacted with them but also healed them. This act not only demonstrates his healing power but also his challenge to social and religious norms, promoting a message of inclusion and compassion for the marginalized. Fact 43. Multiplication of the loaves and fishes. The miracle of the multiplication of the loaves and fishes, where Jesus fed thousands of people with just 5 loaves and 2 fishes, is one of the most well-known and celebrated stories. This miracle symbolizes not only Jesus' divine power but also his deep care for the physical needs of people. This event highlighted the importance of sharing and generosity, core values in Jesus' teachings. Fact 44. Jesus walking on water. Walking on water is one of the most cited miracles of Jesus, an event that demonstrates his mastery over natural laws and serves as a powerful symbol of his divine nature. This miracle, often interpreted as a moment of reaffirmation of faith for the disciples, reinforces the theme of Jesus' power over the physical world and his ability to transcend human limitations. Fact 45. Prediction of his own death and resurrection. Jesus predicted his own death and resurrection multiple times throughout his ministry. These predictions not only prepared his followers for the events to come but also emphasized that his death and resurrection were essential parts of his redemptive mission. By anticipating these events, Jesus demonstrated his full awareness and acceptance of his role as the Savior, reinforcing the divine and preordained nature of his life and work. Fact 46. Disciples who were fishermen. Many of Jesus' early disciples, including central figures like Peter, James, and John, were fishermen with little or no formal education. Jesus' choice of ordinary disciples without academic or religious prestige underlines one of his core teachings, the value of heart qualities over social status or scholarly knowledge. This also shows how Jesus believed in the potential of all people to contribute to the spread of his message, regardless of their background or education. Fact 47. The Transfiguration. The Transfiguration of Jesus was an extraordinary event witnessed by only 3 of his disciples, Peter, James, and John. During the Transfiguration, Jesus was seen in glorious celestial light, conversing with Moses and Elijah. This event not only strengthened the faith of his closest disciples, but also served as a divine manifestation of his identity and mission. Jesus' choice to reveal this vision to only a few disciples highlights the importance of preparing leaders within his group to understand and carry forward his message after his departure. Fact 48. Betrayal by Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, betrayed Jesus by handing him over to the authorities in exchange for 30 pieces of silver. This act of betrayal not only triggered the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion, but also serves as a powerful lesson on human weakness and the complexity of character. The inclusion of Judas among the disciples and his subsequent betrayal reflect Jesus' inclusive nature, which welcomed all types of people and faced, even among his closest, the challenges of disloyalty and conflict. Fact 49. First appearance to Mary Magdalene. After his resurrection, Jesus chose to appear first to Mary Magdalene, one of the few followers who stayed by his side during the crucifixion. This choice underscores the importance Jesus placed on the role of women in his ministry, and how he often subverted the cultural and social norms of the time, which typically marginalized women. Recognizing Mary Magdalene as a witness to the resurrected also emphasizes the importance of faith and dedication, traits she exemplified. Fact 50. Ascension to heaven. The ascension of Jesus to heaven is celebrated as the Ascension, occurring 40 days after Easter. This event not only marks the physical conclusion of Jesus' presence on earth, but also serves as a point of transition for his disciples, who were given the task of continuing his work and spreading his message around the world. The Ascension promises the ongoing spiritual presence of Jesus among his followers, reinforcing the belief in his divinity and the continuation of his ministry through the Holy Spirit. Fact 51. Teaching forgiveness on the cross. Even on the cross, in a moment of extreme pain and suffering, Jesus taught the importance of forgiveness. He prayed for those crucifying him, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This act of forgiveness under such dire circumstances highlights one of Jesus' most profound teachings, the ability to forgive others, regardless of the offense. This example has inspired millions to embrace compassion and forgiveness as central principles in their own lives, demonstrating the strength and depth of his moral and spiritual legacy. Fact 52. Celebration of birth as a symbol of hope. The birth of Jesus is celebrated worldwide at Christmas, an event that transcends religious and cultural barriers to become a time of hope, joy, and renewal. This celebration is not just a reminder of his entry into the world, but also a time to reflect on the messages of love, peace, and kindness he brought. Christmas encourages people to come together, share with those in need, and reaffirm their commitment to the values of care and compassion. Fact 53. Influence in music. The life and messages of Jesus have profoundly influenced music over the centuries, inspiring everything from Christian hymns to major classical works by composers like Bach and Handel. These compositions often explore themes of redemption, sacrifice, and divine love, reflecting the emotional and spiritual depth of his story. The ability of music to evoke emotion and contemplation makes it a powerful vehicle for expressing the reverence and admiration that many feel for Jesus. Fact 54. Central figure in interreligious dialogue. Jesus continues to be a central figure in interreligious dialogue, serving as a point of reference for many religious traditions beyond Christianity. His teachings on love, peace, and fraternity are universal themes that resonate across various beliefs. Jesus' role as a prophet in Islam and his respected position in other traditions highlight his role as a bridge between different faith communities, fostering understanding and mutual respect. Fact 55. Recognized as a great moral and spiritual leader. Jesus is often considered the greatest moral and spiritual leader in history by people of various religions and even those without religious affiliation. His ability to inspire change, promote peace, and shape morality demonstrates his enduring impact on humanity. The ethical principles he exemplified continue to influence laws, social customs, and individual practices, making him a model of leadership and virtue that transcends time and culture. Fact 56. Love above institutional laws. Jesus emphasized the supremacy of love over institutional laws, teaching that love for one's neighbor is the greatest commandment, more important than any other legal or religious prescriptions. He frequently criticized religious leaders who rigidly adhered to the law without understanding the spirit of compassion and justice that should guide them. This principle of placing human love above legal formalities continues to challenge individuals and societies to rethink ethical priorities and promote a morality that upholds human dignity and well-being. Fact 57. Teachings of Jesus in university ethics courses. The teachings of Jesus are studied and debated in ethics courses at universities around the world. His ideas on love, forgiveness, and justice are considered fundamental for understanding many contemporary ethical issues. The inclusion of his teachings in academic discussions underscores the ongoing relevance of his messages in shaping moral and ethical concepts and preparing future leaders to face social and personal challenges with integrity. Fact 58. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is one of the most sacred and visited sites associated with Jesus. It is believed to be the location of both his crucifixion and resurrection. This site is a pilgrimage point for millions of Christians from various denominations seeking to connect with the history and spirituality of Jesus. The veneration of this site reflects the deep connection many believers feel with the events of Jesus' life and their spiritual significance. Fact 59. References in debates on social justice and human rights. Jesus is frequently cited in contemporary debates on social justice and human rights. His principles of love for one's neighbor, care for the marginalized, and criticism of abuses of power are invoked as moral foundations for campaigns and policies that seek to promote equity and human rights. The way he advocated for the underprivileged and challenged unjust structures provides a powerful model for activists and advocates of social justice today. Fact 60. Eternal and global impact. Despite his life being brief, the impact of Jesus is undeniably eternal and global. More than 2,000 years after his death, his figure continues to inspire, comfort, and motivate people around the world. His teachings have crossed cultural and temporal barriers, influencing art, music, literature, law, and social behavior, making him one of the most significant and influential figures in human history. If you found it fascinating to discover these surprising aspects of Jesus' life, imagine what more you can learn with us. Don't miss the chance to deepen your knowledge. Subscribe to our channel now, activate the bell so you don't miss any videos, and give a like to help us share these incredible stories with more people. Additionally, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love exploring even more. Check out our previous video, What Happened to the 12 Apostles of Jesus, where we dive into the mysteries and journeys of Jesus' closest companions. Click here to watch and be amazed by the stories of faith and destiny that shaped the beginnings of Christianity. And if you think someone else might be interested in these profound topics, please share our video. Let's spread knowledge and inspiration together.